Hello all, let's start with SAT May 2025 paper analysis. We will start with the first section, which is reading and writing. So what we observed different or interesting in this time was we could see that there were cross-text connection in module number 1, which was not the case in March. So something interesting coming in the same year. We also saw that two question types, function and purpose, and claims were more balanced this time in module 1 compared to last time. So this was, I think, an easier version when it comes to what the kids saw last attempt. We saw that again the grammar was focused on two areas majorly, which was subject-verb agreement and the punctuations. There was some visibility, and I would say rare visibility, from topics like modifiers and pronouns and apostrophes. And ultimately I could see that logical completion and claims was increased in module number 2 as it was previously done. So one thing is for sure, that if you're facing problems in certain topics, they are still there. You have to focus on how to solve them tactfully and in time, because these are pain points of the students. So don't skip them. They are going to be there in module 2. Quant questions in module 1 were very simple. The texts were really short, the options were really short, so it was very direct. But when it comes to module number 2, it was comparatively lengthy, or I would say decent quant questions were there, which you would actually expect in an SAT level paper. Student notes interestingly increased. In fact, reached a number of 4 or 5 also in many test modules, whereas it wasn't the case last attempt. Transition words were more balanced. We saw in March 25 analysis that there were 6 questions of transition words as well, whereas this time it was usual. We could see that there was a range of 3 to 4 or 5 at max in 1 or 2 of the versions that I saw, which is decent, which is I would say is expected to happen. And that was pretty much it, I think, on a holistic ground, what we saw. So nothing really different. I would say this was more balanced paper. So here we're going to talk about a US version and an international version that we could look at. There was nothing majorly different, but yes, there were some striking similarities and some differences. Nothing to worry about, nothing very different, but yes, we can talk about few things. So something similar was that both international and US version had shorter student notes questions. The grammar portion basically covered subject-verb agreement and punctuations majorly, and the quant questions in module number 1 were very short. That was persistent in both. Coming to CTC, which is cross-text connection, the paired passage questions, that was also there in both module 1s in US and international version. Now, in module number 2, what I saw was claims and inference was strongly persistent to 3 to 4 questions in each of them, which is again an interesting question type. I know it's a pain point for a lot of you, but we have to keep working on that. Now, what were the differences that I saw in US and international version? First of all, in the international version, there were apostrophe questions, at least 2 to 3 of them, which is good to see. It's a respite. And in US version, there was 0. Another thing was the US version has more of main idea, main point questions, around 3 to 4 questions, whereas international version has more of command of textual questions, evidence-based questions, less of main idea, less of big picture questions, you can say. So that was, you can say, shift in the category that happened. Lastly, US version has 5 student notes questions, which is a high number, whereas the international version has 2 student notes questions, which is the minimum number. So usually you would see that minimum 2 to 4 to 5 is the bracket that we see student notes question in. US took the higher side of it and international version took the lower side of it. So these are few little things that we observed which were different and similar. I hope this helps.
That was about English. Let us move on to the math part of SAT May 2025. Majorly, I'd say that the whole test was no different from most of the tests that we have seen so far. Also, one thing is quite interesting about SAT math, that majority of the test is not very hard. It's easy at its best. However, what makes a math module very hard for any student is the inclusion of few very difficult or at least very tricky questions that come towards the end. So that's what we are going to talk about. None of the hard questions in the whole math part of May 2025 were composed of linear equations. In fact, the linear equations questions came hard in a way that they gave you some points and then they just required you to find out the equation or at least any point that lies on it. That's the hardest that it gets. However, in advanced math, which is non-linear algebra, we were able to see questions which asked about the analysis of an exponential model or the questions that ask about a specific part that should be shown in the answer choices as a part of exponential equation. There were also questions which were quite different that we haven't seen before, but different does not mean difficult. The questions in which they gave you the structure of an unknown polynomial and they gave you some points that lie on it. However, none of the points were sufficient enough to find out the complete equation. However, if you are a logical student, you will go ahead and plug in the points in the equation and see that there is some relationship about the unknowns. The unknowns are integer, so you have to accordingly. Now, majorly change that was seen in SAT May math part was about the geometry and trigonometry. We saw at least two questions which could have thrown some students off. One in which they talked about some unit circle with some coordinates on it and they asked about cos theta or tan theta. It's not very different, just that SAT has not tested it right since August 2024. So if a question is rare, it automatically makes the whole test very hard. And the other question that was different was when you have a right triangular pyramid, they gave you the surface area of the base, and after giving you the vertical height of the pyramid, they asked you about the lateral surface area of all the faces. That's not very difficult, just requires a couple of Pythagoras theorems and you are done. So overall, on a difficulty level from 0 to 10, I'd rate it no more than 7.5 or 8. March math was still harder as compared to this. There was no inclusion of very different and diverse difficult questions. There were just some new questions. If you are good at your concepts, you would have done it. And one thing that has still not changed, majority of the test can still be aced just by using Desmos. So keep using Desmos, math will be a game for you. As for the comparison between US version and international version, again, I'll be very clear saying that there are no major differences in the difficulty level or the composition of the questions. So in math, I don't think they're very interested in keeping the two things very different. If you found this video informative and you want us to help you with your SAT journey, the way we are helping so many different students, you can reach out to us using the contact details given in the description below. Also, if you found this video informational and don't want to miss out on all the kind of analysis like this in future, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon right away.